and let us all do we can to build a better future.
The American media has lied to us. The American media has systematically failed the American people. For too long, it has caused further division. For too long, it has played favorites with the Democratic establishment and Republican establishment to have access to these politicians, to constantly say nice things about them, to always be there so they can have that exclusive sit-down interview. Now, something interesting has been happening, though. We're seeing a failure of the establishment media. Now, each of these outlets are trying to jump on board and point the finger and say, oh, well, see, CNN's failing, but Fox News is good. And then there's the whole segment of, well, Fox News is failing, so MSNBC is good. You see, I think they're starting to lose the oxygen. I think they're starting to lose some of their power because they're realizing that the only reason why they're getting any kind of views at all isn't because of how good their shows are on, cable and TV, but it's because only that Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube have their algorithms set. So they're only winning or they're doing somewhat decent because the algorithm is set that way to favor the establishment media. So I want to pull up this first video here. Shout out to Case Study QB. And again, if you're not following him on Twitter, please do so. He's been doing a phenomenal job. He's wrongly being censored. And let's go ahead and pull this video up. So this is a segment with Chris Stirewalt, former Fox News executive, who writes broken news. And it's interesting. So here we have our friends Morning Joe, talking about, well, what exactly is wrong with Fox News and, the failure of the media. Don't worry. I got 2 videos to show you how the media failed us.
And Chris Stirewalt joins us now. He's out with an in-depth look at the news industry and where it's headed in a new book entitled Broken News: Why the Media Rage Machine Divides America and How to Fight Back. It's good to have you on the show this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being with us, Chris. I've got to ask you first. I mean, most of us had you come to our attention around this Arizona call. I mean, come on, buddy. It was kind of tight. You were worried for a couple of days, weren't you?
No, but absolutely really? Not, because we had the goods. We had a different system than our competitors did, and I won't bore you with it. You can have Kornacki come on and explain how exit polling versus the data that we had in our partnership with the Associated Press and the University of Chicago National Opinion Research Center, but I won't do all of that. I'll just say we had a really good poll and a really good mousetrap in Arizona, so we weren't worried about Arizona. Now, I was worried about the fact that the world was losing its daggone mind talking about Arizona and the anger, the rage that you could feel splashing up against us from viewers who had been flattered and cosseted and told that their candidate would win no matter what the poll said. That's what worried me, not whether our call was right. I knew we had it.
I mean, it reminded me a bit, the reaction to the call for Arizona, where you had for a while Fox News viewers going to other networks. They were so outraged that you actually made the right call. But it reminded me a bit about what happened in 2012 when Fox News viewers and people that went to other conservative outlets heard time and again that Mitt Romney was going to beat Barack Obama. We remember that the huge headline that.
You see, this is the problem with corporate media. They're saying the quiet part loud. What they're saying is that when you look at how the media is presented to you, the viewer, the average citizen, you have these people in their suits and ties who claim to be authoritative sources of information that you can trust. But let's look at the programs that happen after an election cycle. They constantly promote for their same team, their same brand. They always have access to these politicians. MSNBC has its bias. Fox News has its. And mostly we see it's center left, not at center left, more center right and center far right. There we go. And it's the problem that we see with corporate media. It's the narrative that they're spewing out. Now, remember what I covered in the first segment. You have a lot of scared, uninformed citizens out there. The reason why we haven't seen such a massive pushback against the establishment is because corporate media has done, and I say this not out of respect, but they've done a phenomenal job in keeping us divided. This is a kind of system that you use to make sure that Americans never come together, that Americans never question, how come we have money for war, but we don't have money for our schools? How can we have money to bail the banks, but our infrastructure is falling apart? How come we have no money for safe, clean drinking water? How come nothing's ever being questioned? Let's play the rest of the video.
In that Gallup poll that had Romney way ahead. And because they lived in this.
Also, because the live stream chat is so awesome, Mika, blink twice if you're in trouble. We'll help you, okay? Mika, all you got to do, blink twice. We'll help you.
This ecosystem, they were absolutely stunned when Romney lost handily.
Yeah, and in the book, one of the things I talk about is the distance traveled in audience experience from 2012 to 2020. And in 2012, Republicans were not happy when the Fox News decision desk called Ohio for Barack Obama. The Fox News viewership did not say, "Oh, wonderful news. We're so pleased about this." No, of course they were upset, and of course they changed the channel. Of course they turned off the TV. That's fine.
Now that's another thing too to bring up. Did anyone Fox News do their due diligence, do any proper research, have anyone on the ground? Because they're making all these calls. Now, the thing is, remember, it's easy to point at Fox News for what they did with the 2012 and the 2020 election cycle. But I wonder, what about all the other midterm election cycles and even that certain 2016 presidential election cycle where all of the liberal establishment media, even TYT and everyone else, were all saying, oh yeah, Hillary Clinton has this in the bag. She can beat Trump. You see, all the media outlets do this. It's easy to vilify Fox News. Let's face it. Hey, Fox News is no better than CNN or MSNBC. But notice, again, when you see the narrative on CNN or MSNBC, they go after Fox News. And to be clear here, look, if Fox News is so bad, the ratings are still up there in the air. I mean, compared to CNN, they're losing all the time. And that really says a lot about, well, where we're at. So without further ado, let's play the rest of the video.
Then they come back, right? You just keep telling the truth. You keep doing the right stuff, and the viewers will come back to you if you have a good product. What happened after 2020 was, and obviously the personnel, we had a different president, we had a different space. But what happened after that was that voters over the previous decade or so had gotten so used to being told what they wanted to hear. Like right now, it's crucially important that Democrats and Republicans get an honest picture.
Notice what the viewer wants to hear. Now, we here at Hard Lens Media, when we do these stories or when we do our opinion pieces, look, we give you the information or our thoughts, and I'm expecting all of you to make the educated choices and decisions for yourselves. That's the whole idea of media. Now, notice he's saying, they expect to hear something. It's because that's how CNN, Fox News, NBC, ABC, CBS, it's how they work. They know their audience. They train their lemmings well. And they want to make sure that their lemmings keep on hearing the same thing over and over again. And let's face it, it isn't just election cycles where the media gets things wrong. The media has gotten a lot of things wrong in the past. Key stories, or even covering why we have ridiculous regime change wars. The media has always failed. Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, CBS, ABC, they have failed us on more than one occasion. And if you think these outlets will ever challenge the Democratic establishment or the Republican establishment or the fact that we don't have real election integrity in this country, they won't do it. Those 5 media outlets will never do that because they have to have access to the politicians. Why? Because the same people who donate to the Democratic Party and Republican Party also control the media. It's one big club. You ain't in it.
Of what's going on in these midterm elections. And it's crucially important that people understand how competitive races are, how competitive what's going on, so that when we get to the end, we don't have this shock experience.
Yeah, I really don't want to get into another network and talk too much about another network. I do want to ask you, though, about Roger Ailes, because Roger was one of the defining media figures of our time. Of course, painted as the worst of the worst, even before the stories came up about the sexual harassment. But Roger, during Glenn Beck's time on the network, started getting nervous, started calling people up, called me up, and said, "Hey, do you think Glenn is going outside of the boundaries? Are we getting too reckless?" This was about the same time Gabby Giffords got shot. He was calling Barack Obama a racist who hated all white people. And a lot of people that knew Roger and had known Roger for a long time were getting those calls. And of course,
Gee, I wonder if you and Roger ever had a conversation about all the reporters that somewhat tried to challenge the war in Iraq or even the war in Afghanistan way back in 2001 and 2003. All right, anyone to challenge the wars that happened or brought them up were immediately fired. Jimmy Dore has gone into great detail covering the hypocrisy of the establishment media, MSNBC, CBS, ABC, CNN, the outlets that a lot of liberals view as the good guys because they cover the stories. Anyone that was against the war was immediately fired. For a long time, outlets like MSNBC, CNN, ABC, CBS agreed with Fox News that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. They agreed. It was, there's WMDs there. You think any of those 5 media outlets all together combined actually did any kind of research to look into the fact, hey, there might be WMDs? No, they didn't. They just went along with what the White House at the time under the Bush-Cheney administration was saying. And of course, it's easy to vilify Glenn Beck. Let's face it, the guy's. But you know what? He was making good money for Fox News. It's all about the viewership with the establishment media. It's all about who gets the views. Always. Always remember that.
I don't know all the details of why Glenn Beck left, but I do know that Glenn Beck did not fit in Roger Ailes' ecosystem because despite what you thought of his ideology and his programming, there were limits to what he would put up with. Has that changed?
Roger's line at the time, as I recall, was the problem with predicting the end of the world every day is that sooner or later you have to deliver. And the apocalyptic kind of, I hear from both sides that America is failing, doomed, hanging by a thread. Everything is over. The dark night of the soul. Well, if you believe that, that's whatever. But if you're doing that to sell pillows or you're doing it to chase clicks, if you're doing it to do that, you are not living up to the duty that you have to the Republic. If you're a journalist, you're not living up to the duty you have to the Constitution. And if you're a citizen and you're not consuming healthful, wholesome news
helpful, wholesome news. This is the same corporate media. I'm going to put them all in the same group because I'm tired of saying their names, those 3-letter names altogether. These are the same corporate media outlets that way back before 2016, around that time, went on a huge crusade and a rampage against YouTube and other social media platforms to where, if you don't give us special treatment, we're going to destroy you. And they snapped social media in two. Facebook buckled down, Twitter bent over, Instagram just cried, and YouTube, gave them the whole store. Their algorithms favor the establishment media. Wholesome news. Has there been any coverage about the Hunter Biden laptop story, even though all of corporate media was saying that was fake news? Any acknowledgement that Russiagate was a conspiracy theory? What about WMDs in Iraq? That's a big one. What about how come we've been in continuous war since 9/11? I know yesterday was 9/11. Yesterday was 9/11. And hey, let's look at how the media failed us. Have we known a year of peace since the U.S. has been at war? Constantly ongoing regime change wars. I got 2 interesting videos to show to all of you after this segment.
reliable information, you're not doing a good enough job either.
All right. So, Chris, in your new book, you write, quote, "There's so much anger in our culture today."
And again, corporate media has contributed to it. It's not just Fox News. It's easy to vilify Fox News. I get it. It's easy to vilify Fox News. But here's the thing. It's bigger than that. It's all of corporate media. All of corporate media, especially when it comes down to covering elections. Never forget that the Washington Post, democracy dies in darkness, in 2016, in one day, did 16 negative articles about Bernie Sanders. Boy, oh boy, I felt sorry for the people who worked at Fox News. I mean, they couldn't keep up with mainstream media and their smearing of Bernie, even though Bernie just let that happen and he never really defended himself. But again, just want to throw it out there.
Can't hate something you aren't afraid of. We are an angry people because we are a frightened people. It wouldn't be.
And corporate media has contributed to that. You've not only made us angry, you've also made us frightened of our neighbors. See, that's the thing. The establishment media is that abuser saying, oh my God, I can't believe you got a black eye. Why are you so scared and frightened? Here, trust me, I promise things are going to be better this time. And it's really improved you as a person.
He's so odd if it weren't for the fact that things are so much better here. And now than they've been for most of human existence. Freer, richer, safer, cleaner, and easier. There are a lot of reasons for this mismatch, but part is surely a result of media overconsumption. Panicky pulp produced to shovel at you in order to hold an audience in a fragmented marketplace.
And Mika. MSNBC does the same thing too. Just throwing it out there.
All day, every day, you are offered an unlimited array of serious worries about which you can do next to nothing. I mean, I'm assuming you're talking about social media and different media outlets, and some which aren't as credible as others. Having said that, is the onus on the viewer or on these new news organizations or social media machines?
Well, I love that you guys do the local papers. I love that you do that because the stuff that we should care, where we should place most of our energy.
Gee, I wonder who they're going to blame. Hey, let's have democracy in the chat. How much you want to bet in this segment? They're going to start blaming you, the viewer, that, you have caused this. But you got to trust us. I'm willing to bet that. Hey, type 1 if you think they're going to start blaming us. Type 2 if you think no, MSNBC would never start blaming the people.
And our concern is on the things around us that we can fix, that we can do something about. The collapse of the local news industry, 2005 and beyond, was...
Hey, buddy. The Bill Clinton Telecoms Act, 1996, where all of corporate media became what it is today. It's because of the Telecoms Act signed under Democratic President Bill Clinton. I mean, the reason why we're seeing a collapse of local media is because of the environment that Bill Clinton and his administration created with the Telecoms Act. So there we go. Hey, just throwing it out there. There's a reason why we're seeing a collapse of local media.
Deeper, broader, and more devastating than any of us knew at the time. My career tracks along with this stuff. I started right at the end where newspapers were the dominant part of the ecosystem, and in their place came in mostly national, low-value news that came in that was not about giving people information about how to live their lives, but connecting with them on an emotional basis. And what good, high-quality news does is give you tools in your life to be a better citizen, to be a better parent, to be a better neighbor, to be a better you. And you can do something about what's going on in the next school board election. You can do something about how your neighborhood is. But if somebody just comes on and says the country is going to die because of strangers in a different part of the country that you've never met or doing something else, that leads to despair. And ultimately, that leads to one of the biggest problems is people just tune out. They just check out. Pew tells us now 15% of all Americans did not consume any news from any source at all in the previous week. That is a really bad sign, because to be good citizens, you need to be informed citizens.
There's also the decline of local news and local investigative reporting, which is another segment. We'll have to have you back. The new book is entitled Broken News: Why the Media Rage Machine Divides America.
Oh, the media rage. Oh, my goodness. The madness, the stupidity, the insanity of it all. Can't things get any better? Well, here's the thing. There's a reason why. I you know what, audience? I owe you an apology. I'm sorry I put you through that abuse. I'm sorry that you had to see that, but there's a reason why. It's because corporate media constantly has put us into unending war, has always kept us divided. Yesterday was 9/11. Since that horrific day, the United States has been on continuous war, ongoing war, keeping the people divided, keeping the people in their own corners. And never once have we questioned about the madness of these ridiculous regime change wars that we're in. So I'll pull up something. Again, it's right here. I want to show all of you this video. Never forget that this happened.
To start with.
And by the way, this is Wesley Clark talking about how, hey, we've been in continuous wars. You think the media ever looked into this?
Wars and change governments. It's not to sort of deter conflict. We're going to invade countries. And I my mind was spinning. They wanted us to destabilize the Middle East, turn it upside down. Now, did anybody ever tell you that? Was there a national dialogue on this? Did senators and congressmen stand up and denounce this plan? Was there a full-fledged American debate on it? Absolutely not. And there still isn't. I was leaving the Pentagon and an officer from the Joint Staff called me into his office and said, I want you to know, he said, sir, we're going to attack Iraq. And I said, why? He said, we don't know. He said, I said, well, did they tie Saddam to 9/11? He said, no. And then I came back to the Pentagon about 6 weeks later. I saw the same officer. I said, why haven't we attacked Iraq? We still going to attack Iraq? He said, oh, sir. He says, it's worse than that. He said, he pulled up a piece of paper off his desk. He said, I just got this memo from the Secretary of Defense's office. It says we're going to attack and destroy the governments in 7 countries in 5 years. We're going to start with Iraq, and then we're going to move to Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Iran. It was a pretty stunning thing.
You know, it's not like that actually happened. I mean, did we'd go to Libya, Syria, Iran, all these places. It's not like that actually. Oh, wait, it did. Libya's an open slave market. There's a genocide happening in Yemen. Syria is still an ongoing war zone, and there's an American military base being set up there. Let's not forget this proxy war that's happening in Ukraine. Gee, I wonder, did any of that truly come to fruition? The answer is yes, it did. You think the media is going to look into it? No, never. Never that. And why? Because our politicians will always profit off of ongoing war. And it's you, the American people, that will suffer. Unfortunately, our system is designed to cater to the politicians because the politicians want the ongoing war to happen. And since 9/11, since the war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan and in Iraq, it's been getting worse. And never forget, one of the senators that was so on board with supporting the war in Iraq was none other than Joe 30330, who's our current president. Shout out to one of our viewers, Mike Tunick, who says, many of us are messed up because of these wars, and Biden doesn't care. Veterans like myself, Kit Cabello, hey, who's that? And Shauna, and many others continuously try to tell others to stop waging war because of reasons like this. Now, why? Here we go. We actually played this way back in 2020. But I want you guys to see what happens, especially with a populace that's been told to ignore stories, that's been trained to ignore stories by corporate media. Remember, corporate media will never look into why we are doing ongoing wars. And of course, corporate media will never challenge the politicians because the politicians profit off of war.
I'm an Air Force veteran here with Army veteran. Just wondering why we should voted for a war and kill thousands of our brothers and sisters. Countless You also gave a medal to the man who enabled that war and caused that war. Your blood is on your hands as well. You're disqualified. You're disqualified. You're disqualified. My friends are dead. So is my son. Who was in Iraq. For a year. That doesn't matter, right? I don't think it matters to me. It matters a lot to me. I'm sure it does. Okay, I'm not going after your son. You better know. I'm not. I'm not going after your son. You were disqualified, sir. Disqualified. The blood is on your hands. Blood is on your hands. No. My brothers and sisters died in Iraq and Afghanistan. And he enabled that to happen. He enabled that to happen. He is disqualified. He is disqualified. No way he can be president. They are dead. Millions are dead in Iraq. He will not be allowed to be president. Disqualified. Trump is more anti-war than Joe.
Fucking bullshit. Fucking imperialist. We actually fought in your damn wars. We fought in your wars. You sent us to hurt civilians. We hurt civilians. You pushed us out to do it.
If you're not angry, you should be. You think Morning Joe and his fantastic friends, or anyone from Fox, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, will look into why we're doing ongoing wars, why there's so many coups happening? No, they won't. It's easy to write a book and say, oh, yeah, oh, there's so much division and hatred. Oh, what can we do? Tisk, 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 wag their finger. These corporate media outlets designed it. Yesterday was 9/11, like I said. And unfortunately, our politicians are okay with ongoing war. Business is a booming. I saw that from the live stream chat. Shout out to Miguel H. And unfortunately, corporate media won't do it because, again, like I said, the politicians want the war. Corporate media wants war. And they don't care what the end result will be because it's such a shiny headline. You think they're going to inform the American people? No, they'll never do that. That's the kind of world we live in. It's madness and stupidity all around.